All right, good morning. Let's first start by just saying a big thank you to everybody who has spoken, who has been here for the past 2 days. It's been fantastic programming. This is actually my first year at All Things Open, and it usually falls right around my birthday, and so I'm glad I can finally be here before my birthday. So I'm just really, really grateful to be here and be speaking with all of you today. So I am Kelly Vaughn. I'm a Director of Engineering at Spot AI. I'm also a recovering entrepreneur. And I talk a lot about LinkedIn. It's the platform that everyone loves to hate, but let's be honest, LinkedIn gets you jobs. And LinkedIn is very, very, very useful just for networking in general. So what we're going to be talking about today is actually, to introduce this, we just had a really great talk about community from Jono. I'm going to be up here roasting my husband's LinkedIn profile. So, we're creating a balance here. So I am going to be spending 15 minutes or so breaking down his LinkedIn profile to help you understand what you need to know in order to network and find your next job. So one thing I always love to stress here is the best time to be networking is when you already have a job. You never know when you're going to find yourself in a position where you need to find your next job, or you're just ready for that next thing. And the connections you make are what gets you that next job. We all know, how many of you are currently job hunting right now? Raise your hand. It's a lot of people, right? And we all know we apply to jobs, and we apply to so many, and we just never hear back. And we often hear the best way into a company is by somebody you know. You get a referral, you get an introduction to somebody, the hiring manager, you make a relationship with the hiring manager or recruiter to kind of help you through that process. So a great place to start is on LinkedIn. So as we go into this, one thing I really want you to do is I want you to pull up your LinkedIn profile, tap the search icon at the top, and there's a little QR code on the right side. Don't make too much noise if you do this now, please. But with the people to your left, to your right, behind you, connect with them on LinkedIn. These connections you make here are what can land you that next job. So if you don't do it now, you can do it later, but if you do it now, don't make a lot of noise, please. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So when I was working on these slides, I'm just sitting in my house with my husband, and I'm like, I need somebody's LinkedIn profile to put on here so I can kind of talk through what needs to be done. He's like, why don't you use mine? And I just looked at him, I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, totally fine. So because this is recorded, I am going to be really nice, but let's go ahead and break it down. So this is my husband. We're going to be talking through a few sections of this part of the profile here. We'll be going through the picture at the top. I see a lot of profiles that have absolutely no picture whatsoever. This is a really great place for you to just bring something in that is meaningful to you. For him, he works in IT, so he's weirdly passionate about servers and server rooms and very neat cabling. That's not what I put on mine. I think mine's just like the Atlanta skyline, which this QR code over here has all of my profiles, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever else. So you can check out mine and feel free to roast mine back at me. It's totally fine. Picture. Headshots are great. Some selfies I see are also honestly perfectly fine. Animated photos, not seeing anybody's picture whatsoever makes it really hard for people to build a connection with you if they don't know what you look like. So that's a really easy win there. And then the next thing I want to point out is the tagline below his name. So IT Director at OneTrust, Technology Leader and Innovation Driver. So this is a really great place to grab keywords that are relevant to you and your job search. So if you are searching for a job in full stack engineering or IT, or for me, I'm in engineering leadership, that's where you want to put those things, because I use LinkedIn Recruiter for looking for candidates. I have reviewed thousands of resumes and LinkedIn profiles. I've interviewed hundreds of candidates over the course of my career, and keywords are critical because I search for those keywords to find you. That is a really great place because that shows up when you're communicating with others on LinkedIn. and you're able to actually make those connections with them. And I can immediately say, okay, well, Daniel's in IT. I'm looking for somebody in IT. I can understand a little bit more. He has this ITSM certification. That could be a really useful thing if I'm requiring that ITSM certification for my role. So there's one more thing I can point out here is Linktree. If you have other links you want to share to your portfolio, to your GitHub, to your personal website, to other social media, that's a great place to do that. It's a single link, but Linktree allows you, of course, to add multiple links if you want that. So moving on is the About section. I am not going to read this out loud to you. But what I will say here is I see a lot of people get this section wrong. I love reading this About section because I want to know a little bit more about you, but not just a regurgitation of what's on your resume. I want to know more about you. And you can see this very bottom section here, outside of my work, my dedication to helping others succeed runs deep. It teaches me a little bit more of what else you're interested in. For me, that is traveling, that is running, talking about Peloton to a really annoying amount. And you can just see some other things that he likes to do. It's a good place to kind of pull in your personality. And I'm going to be looping back around to this at the very end, but one thing I will say is I see a lot of people use ChatGPT to write their About section. The thing about ChatGPT, and again, I have a slide dedicated to this at the very end, it's a useful tool. It should not write content for you. I have reviewed LinkedIn profiles and resumes where people did not even remove the quote marks around the text they copied from ChatGPT. You can tell when something has been written by AI. I think we're all kind of picking up, certain signs when it comes to resumes. If you've streamlined a lot of things, there are certain keywords that ChatGPT loves to use. And that's when that really shows up in this About section. And this is why I encourage you, if you want to use ChatGPT to help you come up with some ideas of what to write, great. Just don't let it write it for you. There are also these top skills here. You can, of course, add skills on LinkedIn. Again, keywords, really useful for finding those via search. The next section here is your activity section. The reason why I put this in here is because I do see a lot of folks who don't use LinkedIn, which I understand is another social media platform, which is not really social media, but is quickly becoming one because now they're really putting video front and center, which I have a lot of opinions about. But you can see he is relatively active on here. And you can start to see, are they posting? Are they commenting? I see some of the folks who use LinkedIn with relative frequency, they got their first job in tech because they were interacting with other people on LinkedIn. As simple as just commenting on something that they're saying. If there are people that you're actually really interested in connecting with, or there's a certain job you're looking for and you're really, really passionate about getting this job, interact with their posts. It's a really great way to get in front of them. And I'm glad he also reposted my own LinkedIn post there. So that's nice of him too. I'm not going to move on, or I'm not going to talk about that too much because I really, really want to talk about this experience section. And this is the one point where I will mildly roast my husband. He's been at OneTrust for almost a year and a half now, and I mean, I know what he does sort of just because I live with him, but nobody else is going to know what he's done at OneTrust. And if nobody knows, you never know. Again, you never know what's going to happen if somebody happens to, your company goes through layoffs, or something happens and you're just like, I don't feel like this is the right company for me anymore. Or the company's culture shifts and you're ready for something new. You're going to be stressed updating your LinkedIn profile instead of networking with people because it's already ready for you to go. And one of the things I talk about I run a course called Management Fundamentals for Tech Leaders. One of the things I talk about is this idea of a quarterly development plan, where you're checking in with your team on what have I accomplished in the past quarter, what do I want to work on and work towards in the next quarter, and how can I as your manager support you in getting there. This is the perfect time during this quarterly kind of check-in with yourself to update your LinkedIn and update your resume. Because again, you never know when you're going to lose your job, and You don't want to sit there and try to remember all of your accomplishments you had. Like he accomplished a lot at BlockFi, and if any of you are in crypto, that was a really chaotic time to be in crypto. And that's why it's really important for him to highlight his experience at OneTrust as well. So as I move into ChatGPT, I want to stress this one more time. ChatGPT is really, really useful for coming up with outlines and coming up with ideas. It writes my SQL queries for me with, decent, it's okay. It helps me with my newsletter, coming up with ideas of what to write, but it doesn't write my content for me, because if it wrote my content for me, it would look like everybody else's content that's out there. And I bring a personal voice to my work, and you all bring a personal voice to your work as well. And so I highly encourage you, if you want to use ChatGPT, you want to use Claude, great. Just again, don't copy and paste from ChatGPT and put it into your LinkedIn or your resume. And the last thing I'll comment on this section here, I was just thinking about this. This is a really good example, actually, of how you can structure, you use the same content for your resume as well. So everything I'm telling you for your LinkedIn profile, you can use for your resume too. You can see his experience here at for BlockFi, where he is very, very specific about some of the things that he's been working on or worked on in the past, as far as how big of a budget he managed, how many people he managed, I'm not sure if that's actually there, how big the company is. Oh yeah, 3 managers, 8 team members, there we go. The more measurable you can get with your accomplishments, the easier it is for a hiring manager to say, okay, they have enough experience here, or this is a little bit outside of what they've done before, but they can potentially be really successful with a little bit of coaching. So I highly encourage, as you're thinking through these bullet points, and again, LinkedIn does not support bullet points, but you can add them yourself, be as specific as possible. Because what I end up seeing some people do is they will write paragraphs of their experience here. It goes one of 2 ways. They either write really long paragraphs, which I'm not going to read, or they write absolutely nothing, like OneTrust here, and I have no idea what you've been doing for the past 1.5 years of your life. So I encourage you to spend some time thinking about this as you're going about your day and you're talking with other people, and you have some downtime here. I know this is very, very packed programming, but if you do have some time, be thinking about, as you explain what you do for a living and the kind of work that you do, be thinking about these points and start plugging them in. Nothing on your LinkedIn profile is permanent. You can change it whenever you want, and I highly encourage you to revisit your about section, to revisit your bullet points, especially if you've been at the company quarter after quarter after quarter, because now we're all going to update our LinkedIn at least quarterly, and continue to refine your message. The more that you refine on here, the easier it is for you to find that next job. And again, I've been talking mostly around the idea of getting a job. This is so beneficial for networking. Again, we all came to this conference for a reason. We want to meet other people. We want to learn from these amazing speakers, a fantastic lineup of speakers, but we also want to literally connect with the people near you. And we want to learn. I want to learn more about what you're working on. I want to learn more about what you're passionate about. So make sure you are connecting with people on LinkedIn. And then what I would recommend doing is set a reminder for, first off, connect with them, and then remind yourself, put a note in a message to them saying where you met them, because I end up with, I think I have 1,200 open connection requests right now that I have been neglecting. It's a little bit overwhelming. I don't really remember exactly where I met you, and so it's a really good opportunity to say, okay, this was All Things Open. Okay, this was this conference. Okay, this was this expo. So it's a good way to connect with people, and then if there's somebody you're really, really interested in connecting with later, put a note on your own calendar to follow up with them in a week, and just say, hey, I'd love to get some time to just chat with you and learn more about what you're doing. If this is a hiring manager that you want to connect with, and you're writing a message to them, my good friend Taylor just did Exposing the Interview Process, a talk yesterday about this. Highly recommend, if you want to connect with a hiring manager specifically, don't go in saying, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? If every time I post a role and I actually respond and said, yes, you can have 5 minutes of your time, I would need about 12 more days in a week to actually take those calls. Instead, ask a very specific question and say, I'm curious, what is a day in the life like working here? Or what are some of the challenges that you're kind of working towards solving here? The more specific you can get, the more likely somebody is to actually respond, and it's going to feel less transactional. And the more time you spend actually communicating with people, commenting on their posts, making your own posts, the less likely it is to feel like we're just exchanging our contact information in hopes to actually talk at some point in the future. Like, build those relationships. Be very intentional about building those relationships. So with that, again, stop using ChatGPT to write your content. Thank you so much. I am speaking here again at 1:45 on building influence without authority. Basically what that is how can you build an impact and build influence within your organization without having to have a manager or director title. And with that, I'll hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you so much.